Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live show. Like I said, I decided to do it on the Saturday morning Australia time today rather than the usual Friday due to we went out yesterday to see Black Panther, which I loved. So yeah, it's just waiting for a few people to come in. So let's grab a few people to see who's here. So please say hi, guys. There's stacks watching now.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Let me turn that down. I always forget. We've got Video Master here. Say g'day, mate. How you going, Video Master? Someone else said Mad Fan. He won't know what you mean. It's g'day. Who else have we got? Richard's in here. Rick Mentone. Hey, Dave from Brooklyn, New York. Who are your favourite photographers? Ooh, contemporary and past. Hard to say. One of them, obviously, Jerry Gionis, I really admire. He's one that I really do love coming from the wedding and portrait side of it. So he's probably one that I really do love. Joe McNeil, also another one, because I am very strong in flash, so I really appreciate him as well. So there are a couple of photographers that, you know, I really like at the moment. So those two particularly are really good. So if you haven't looked them up, look them up. Three Trees is here as well. Let's talk about the beer I'm going to have today with you guys. Switchback said events. Hey, new to your channel. Great to see you here, Switchback Events. Who else have we got? Casper's here. Chad's here. Long Island Hillbilly is here. Stuart is also here from Florida. But check this bit. I'm going to try something different today. This is James Squire Jack of Spades porter. Basically what it says on the back, which is really interesting, and I love this. I just tasted it then. I love trying different beers. This one is really quite unique. It's a bit sort of Guinnessy in the way that it tastes, but it says on the back that it was a convict from the First Fleet came to Australia, and what he did when he basically got his freedom in 1775, sorry, 1975, and I haven't even started drinking yet. When he got his freedom in 1775, he was the first Australian brewer. So he made a beer company, and it was obviously called this James Squire beer. So I'm going to try this today, guys, and cheers. So I'll just show you the thing on the back so you can read it if you want to pause it later on. That's talking about him and when he came out in the First Fleet when Australia was discovered. So cool beer. This is the brew that I'm going to try. It's called James Squire Jack of Spades. Oh, thank you so much, Rick. Really appreciate that, mate. Rick just made a donation. Really appreciate it. So no Corona today. I thought I'd try a couple of different ones. Let's go over to the chat again. I'm going to have stacks to talk about with you today, guys, about Sony rumours and some other things as well. But cheers in the meantime. I'll be roaring after a few of these. That's really nice, actually. I love it. It is a bit Guinnessy. Yum. Wow. So Richard said his favourite photographer is Yusef Karsh. I haven't heard of him, Richard. I'll have to look him up when I get the time. Please ask your questions. Talk amongst yourselves in the live chat, and obviously I'll come back at the end and we can have a little talk at the end going through all these questions. If you aren't here in the live show, leave those down below and I'll get back to you later on, and I always do answer. Just to let you know, these for the new people that are actually starting to come into this, these usually go for over an hour. So if that's too long for you, clearly it's not going to be right and you may want to watch it later on. I'm not in this business to just get followers, and there's all these algorithms out there saying you should only go on for 3 to 4 minutes or whatever. I'm just here to have a chat with you guys, and I love just having a chat with you guys, passing some things on. Sometimes too I learn from you guys, and it's just the way that these chats go. And I just adore being able to just sit down and have a chat. So that's why usually they do tend to go a lot longer than what a lot of other YouTubers are tending to have out there. But I just love sharing the stuff with you guys, so they always are a bit longer. So I've had a couple of people say to me, you know, they're way too long. Well, and I've just answered them back, well, perhaps you shouldn't be watching. It may not be for you. This is more for me about bringing in a weekly sort of shows and interactions with you guys. It's not about for me to just be meeting that YouTube 3-minute timeline to get as many people to view it as possible. Because sometimes some people may not like other things, but then they'll skip a little bit forward and they may love this next story. So it's just, like I said, it's more about me sharing and giving something back to you guys. What has Rick said here too? The big beer companies have obliterated most of the small beer companies in the US. Well, there is quite a few of these still around, Rick. So, and this is a small one. I mean, I don't know whether you can even get these imported, but this is really nice. I've never had this before, and it's really yummy. Really nice, actually. Ooh. I bought a couple of different ones today, so next week, or the next live one, I might have a different one with you guys. Video must have said it goes way too fast for me. And that's the thing, I mean, if you really do like listening to all of these different stories and having a chat amongst yourselves, asking questions and stuff, I just think it's a great format to do. Anyway, how many have we got watching now? So we've got about 30 odd watching now, and it'll obviously keep going as we go on. I'm going to talk a bit about the a7 III, obviously, because I'm still deciding myself which way to go with that camera. I probably am going to buy it, and I may buy it when it first comes out, or not long after that camera is actually released. I'm still deciding where to actually get it. Now, whether I won't be able to get it immediately because the pre-purchases are so strong, and I'm going to talk to you about that, the pre-purchases shortly. I wanted again to thank Rick for giving the donation. Thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate that. So I'm not sure where I'll actually fit it in, and I'm not 100% sure that I might just wait and see what they release with the a7S III first and see what happens there, because I think that's going to be announced probably about a similar time to the a7 III is released. So yeah, I'm just a bit at this stage not sure where to go. If I didn't have the A9, I'll be honest with you, I would be buying the a7 III straight away. But because I've got the A9, I'm comfortable with shooting at the moment what I've got. But I will definitely be getting that camera shortly, and it seems to be really hitting the market strong. And that's what we're going to talk about first as well. Tim said, yes, who has pre-ordered? So if you have pre-ordered, mention that in the chat. The other thing too, guys, with the chat, make sure you do put @DavidOsler, as David just did, because that does bring it up to my attention, and therefore I won't miss it when I'm skipping later on. Craft beers are getting B8 something. What does that mean, David? I'm not sure what that means. Is that a US thing or something? David said, your weekly videos are like hanging out with your friends after work and enjoying. And that's how I want it to be, David. So, like I said, it's not really about me for just getting views, because to be honest, if I just wanted to get views, I would be posting just 3-minute videos like everyone else is doing. This more to me is about having interactions with you guys and giving something back. So it's just a different philosophy that I'm tending to give than what other people are providing, I suppose. Carlos said a7R2 or the a7 III. I'd get the a7 III unless you need the resolution, Carlos. But the a7 III is a much better camera than the a7R2, definitely. Billy said, Billy, glad to catch you live. Can you give me some more info on the a7 III? Is it supported in Lightroom 6? No, it won't be, I don't think. If you're going to get that camera, you're going to have to get the latest version, because the CS... they're not supporting them now with RAW profiles, so you'd have to be shooting in JPEG, Billy. So that's going to be an issue if you are dealing with that. Oh, this is so good. Oh, wow. All right, let's get stuck in the show anyway, guys, because I've got stacks and stacks of stuff to actually discuss with you guys. Like I said, clearly keep going with the questions, and you can come back there. But let's get going anyway. So the first thing that we're actually going to look at today is these. I've used multiple sites here: Sony Alpha Rumours, Petapixels, DP Review. They're all saying that apparently the a7 III is the best-selling camera at B&H. It's also been now the best on Amazon. And I've just heard someone say in my photography and videography group on Facebook that it's now become their best-selling camera. It's beaten the a7R III. And it's only just come on sale. I mean, oh boy, this camera is going to sell like hotcakes. It really is going to sell like hotcakes. There's another story here that's saying it's among the best sellers at Amazon. And there's multiple tests now that are coming on, but clearly it's selling like complete hotcakes. That's why I think if you've not put in, if you haven't put in your order yet, it may be too late to get it on release day already. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But I know with the a7R III, when that came out, they were all saying it was very, very hard to get, but I could have got one straight away here in Australia straight after. So it's interesting to see how many people buy these things, and sometimes they do have extra stock. I'm not saying they will in this case though, because it's cheaper, and I think more people are definitely jumping over the ship to get this camera. And I've heard multiple people actually saying that they are switching for this. And you know, I've been looking in the Canon sites that are out there, and there's a lot of people talking about this camera, like a hell of a lot. And to be honest, I really think Canon shooters have probably particularly have had enough. Nikon shooters have been looked after a little bit better, but the Canon shooters, the innovation that they're getting in those cameras has just been non-existent. So I think they probably are starting to get frustrated, and I think this may be the camera that pushes everyone over the edge. But that's just my opinion of what's going on there. But if you're looking at these websites saying that, well, clearly it is selling incredibly well. As we can see, the reason behind that camera acquiring its top position among its core is the core specification and the price tag of the camera. Because what you're getting for that camera, for that price range, is incredibly good value. So, you know, I do really think that it's going to sell incredibly well. And it probably is going to hurt people like Panasonic and, you know, definitely Canon as well, even on the video side. So there are a couple of interesting stories that I thought we'd start off on, and again we'll come back to the chat and discuss these soon. Another thing here as well is that I wanted to just, actually I'm going to skip that one, I'll bring this up a little bit later. This is interesting though, because this is sort of in a direct conflict to what I was just saying, but this is talking about digital SLRs and everything as a whole. They're saying that the shipping amount actually is not doing anywhere near as well as previous years, so it is dropping down. They're saying the number of cameras made and shipped in the first half of 2018 barely reached 70% of the volume of the same time last year. So clearly camera sales aren't doing very well, but that's more digital SLRs, because the mirrorless actually rose by 8%, it said. But it's a bit confusing because it says even though the volume produced was only 80% of the previous... Oh, so they've not produced as many, but they're selling 8% more, which is interesting. So the digital obviously is still growing. The mirrorless, I should say. SLRs clearly are starting to be hit more and more with this. And obviously, it's going to continue, I think. I mean, like I said to you the other day when the a7 III was released, this really could be the death knell of a lot of these other cameras, because I think a lot of people are going to switch over. I really believe this camera is going to be the best-selling camera for the whole year. I can't see anything coming out that's going to match the a7 III for the next 12 months particularly. And I'm just dying to see what Sony are going to release in their a7S III. I mean, you think about it, the cameras they've released just lately, the A9, you've got, which is the upper end. You've got now the a7R III, which is an incredible camera. They will release an a7S III probably at NAB. And then they've got the a7 III sitting sort of underneath that, and the a6500. What a lineup Sony have. It's incredible. And now with the Sigma announcement coming out that they're supporting the lenses, again, that's another thing now where people can say, well, you know, now they've got all these other lenses that are available to be attached. And it's only a matter of time now before they start adding their zooms in as well. So the game is changing. The game is changing really fast. And I think Canon and stuff, they've left it too late. I really do think they've left it too late. The new mirrorless from Canon is a joke compared to what Sony have just released. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. So that's quite interesting in the fact that things have dropped down over that period of time. So, and I think they're saying it's got worse last year, and it was even worse than 2016. So clearly the numbers are dropping down. I wanted to, let me switch this over to, this was quite interesting. I'm not sure whether you watch Max Europe. He did a review of the A9 just the other day. Let me just move this over a little bit. And he's compared a few cameras together for ISO. So he's done the a7III, the a7R3, the a6500 and the GH5. I think putting the GH5 in this is a bit irrelevant because everyone knows the GH5 is not good in low light. And you're dealing with a micro four thirds camera here, and I've told you particularly, if it's anything, if I'm dealing in low light scenarios, I won't be using the GH5. I'll be using my a6500 or the A9 or the a7R2. Sony definitely is leaders in low light. But the interesting thing about this report was, and it's what a lot of other people are saying too, is that the a7III is the best camera now for ISO, and then most of them are saying it's even better than the a7S too. So what an amazing camera that they've produced. I just can't wait to see what they release with the a7S III if that's the case. Because they have to, that has to be increased even more. But the results Max was getting in this camera with really high ISOs pushed out, the files were really quite clean and usable. And you know, a lot of the times you wouldn't even had to use noise reduction. So it was an incredibly detailed analysis, and it just proves how good the a7III is, and it was better than the a7R3. The a6500 is actually pretty good, but the a7III was sort of in a league in its own in that scenario. You don't buy the GH5 for low light, you'd buy the GH5S, and even then the GH5S is only really equivalent to the a6500. So you're not buying it for that. You're buying it more for the stabilization. You're buying the GH5 more for the 4K 60p, and it is still ahead if you're talking about video features than what the Sonys have, but the a7S III is probably going to kill that. But a great article. So, and again, I'll put these links down below, so you can get these links a little bit later if you want to go through them. But again, what a camera, guys! You know, and it's really interesting to see what they've given you in a camera range that's $2,000. Like I said, I know $2,000 is, and I had a discussion with one of the people following me today, actually. He was saying that I shouldn't be saying $2,000 is cheap. In the context of what they're offering, though, $2,000 is cheap for that camera. For the technology you're getting inside that camera, I think it is really affordable to get in that marketplace, because just not long ago you would have paid $3,000 to $4,000 for that camera that you're now paying $2,000. If you're in a professional marketplace, and that's what I'm targeting at when I'm looking at these sort of cameras, you need to be paying that sort of money to be really in the professional marketplace, because anything underneath that will start to struggle. You can still do it. I can shoot professional work with the a6500, but these cameras are a step above what you can do there. You know, and I think for the money they've asked for the a7S, the a7III, it is a game changer for what's being offered out there, and that's why I think other manufacturers are really going to be worried about this camera. And again, I'm going to come back to the chat, guys, about this, so we can have a discussion about this. Cheers, I'm having another drink. This beer is really good. I really like that, actually. Jack of Spades. If you're an Aussie, try it. Jack of Spades. It's James Squire. Love it. What else have we got? He's saying that just tested it, and it said the low light abilities against the a7R3, the Sony a6500 and the GH5, and he was shocked by how impressive it actually was. Yeah, well, there you go. He's saying here it's a more affordable option than the 2,700 a7S II or the 3,200 a7R3 or the 4,500 A9. But yeah, so there you go. So what a great camera for the price in that respect, talking about low light. There's also now been the manual, so if you are in the market for buying the a7III or you just want to look over the manual, that's now available for download. And like I said, I'll put the links down below so you can go there and get it if you want to read the manual, or definitely if you've put it on pre-order. You can have a look at the manual now, so that is now available. There's a PDF version as well. Now, another thing, Sony have just had their World Photography Awards out, and you can check the actual images if you go through this. They've now put a short list out of what's there. And basically you have a look at them anyway, and like I said, I'll put that in the link below, and some of them are really gorgeous images. They're just, you know, quite stunning, some of the images that are released. Some of them I think, well, there's not a big deal about them, but it just depends on what you're actually looking at and what you find as being amazing photography. But clearly you can look through these anyway and let me know what you think about them. I never, to be honest, I don't enter competitions. I just never do, and I've never entered things like the WWPI at the moment that's on. I've never entered competitions like that. I'm just not really into that sort of stuff, and I don't really need someone else to approve my work. In other words, I'm just comfortable myself in what I produce, and hopefully my clients, and well, they obviously do, love my work as well. And that for me is enough. I don't need to sort of submit my work to someone else. But if you're into that sort of stuff, you know, go for it. A lot of people love it. I know here in Australia they also do it. They do it for the APPI, I think, AIPP something or other here in Australia as well. Australian Institute of Professional Photographers it is, yep. They do that here too, but I don't do it personally. But if you do want to have a look at that, like I said, you can check that out in the links below, and it has now been shortlisted, so they're getting down into the more serious part of doing it. I did want to also go through this with you. There's now a review up showing what size the new Tamron 28-75 is, sitting on the A9. Looks like quite a nice looking lens actually, and the reports, I've seen a couple of reports talking about it. It's meant to be quite good. Tamron are saying they're hoping that it's as good as the G Master, so let's wait and see when the reviews actually come out what you think about this. This isn't a lens that I'd probably buy though. I very rarely use that focal length anymore. I have the 2470 f4 version, and I just use that sometimes in studio, and apart from that I don't use it. So anyway, that's something I just thought that I'd share with you. There's another one here which does sort of interest me because I do like Voigtlander lenses. Voigtlander have announced another couple of FE lenses. Again, more and more lenses are starting to come out, and this is really interesting for all of us. I mean, we all benefit from this. They've announced a 110mm and a 21mm FE lens, and you can see those lenses actually marked down here. Again, they look stunning. Beautiful if you're doing video and you like to manually focus. They will only be manual focus. The aperture ring on the Voigtlander lens is stunning. And these are two more lenses now that are being announced. And like I said, once again, the more native FE lenses that are available, the better it is for all of us. I'm not saying go out and buy these, but it's just more options if we want to go down that avenue. I've got a Voigtlander 10.5 0.95 lens, and I love it. That's on the GH5 though. But they are just made like tanks, and it really is sort of that vintage feel about them. Beautiful to use, beautiful focusing ring, a lovely aperture declick ring. Great if you're doing video particularly. But yeah, what are they saying? The 110 is a 2.5 macro FE lens. So it's a macro FE lens on that one. So it could be a lovely lens if you're interested in that sort of focal length. But yes, and there's information there about it as well. What's it saying about the 21mm? The 21mm is a f3.5 to f22. So they're new Voigtlanders that are just released. This is the one of the first images of the Sony. I think if you went to WWPI, you would have seen this there. Is the Sony 400mm f2.8 lens that's been announced, or it must be produced now, so we're just waiting on it being produced. I don't think they say. Anyone that went to WWPI may be able to answer if they mentioned when this is going to be released yet. I don't know if they have. But there's images down here that you can see how the lens looks. Obviously, there's stacks of options that you can use in this lens. They're probably to do with focusing focal lengths or something. But it looks like a fantastically produced lens. Beautiful. It's going to be incredibly heavy though. Again though, you're only going to be using this if you are shooting sports, or birding, wildlife. This would be the perfect camera to tie up with your A9 would be stunning. Again, I just wanted to show you guys that again, Sony are still innovating and they are producing more and more lenses. It's not going to be long until people are not going to be able to say there's not enough lenses. And the other thing is, and this is what absolutely drives me nuts, the immediately thing that Canon people will say and Nikon people will say, they haven't got enough lenses. What a load of crap. How many lenses does the average person need? 90% of the people, 99% of the people out there, Sony have probably got ample lenses for what you would ever use. Yes, there is a niche market that haven't got it, and at the moment that's sports, and it would be wildlife, people like that. But that's going to come. And you can get around that if you use adapters. It's not ideal, but you can get around it. But clearly now with this lens being produced, with Sigma now announcing what they're doing now with FE lenses, it's only a matter of time before Sony have all of that covered, and then what are they going to whinge about? You know, well, they'll come up with something else. Cheers, after that rant. What else have we got? Oh, this was pretty nice too. I found this page that said, here are the top 10 wedding photos of 2017. I'm not sure who voted it. Was it Peter Pixel? Oh no, it's the International Wedding Photographer of the Year. I think it came from that somewhere anyway. But these are wedding images that people have said were their top wedding images. I mean, some of them are nice, but some I think, well, yeah, no big deal. But again, have a look at them. Let me know what you think about the images. Remember, the thing too is it's always subjective too. And this is why I don't submit images either, because I really have a hard time sometimes thinking how they subjectively pick images, and sometimes I think they deliberately do them on names. But, you know, if they did images where there was no names involved and things like that, that could be interesting. But, you know, I think they always do have their names involved with them. So anyway, some of them are quite interesting. They have different categories that are there. But I'll put that in the link. Excuse me, the beer's repeating on me. In the link below. Another one here we've got is Sigma. The first real-world images in the new Sigma out lenses. So this is the 35mm 1.4 put on the camera. It will be interesting to compare that to how it compares to the Sony. I don't think they've got any images of that compared to other lenses. But there was a lot of people whinging online. And again, honestly, do some people have nothing better to whinge about? There was a lot of people online whinging about how this part of the lens, let me just bring this up for you. Where are we? There was an awful lot of people whinging online about this part of the camera just being attached. And that is basically the MC11 adapter welded onto the lens. Well, big deal. You're getting that for nothing. The thing is, before, you had to pay for that attachment if you wanted to run Sigma lenses on there. So not only a Sigma giving you this lens for the same price as they are with the Nikon and the Canon versions of these lenses, you're getting the adapter built in, and they also said that they've done some tweaks to make it run even better. So yes, eventually Sigma may redevelop these so that it's all built in differently and they redesign the lenses. But if something works and you're willing to lug around that weight, and to be honest, there's not going to be that much of a difference. If you're lugging around a heavy lens, there's not going to be much of a difference probably between this Sigma 35 and the Zeiss 35 1.4. That's quite a heavy lens. It might be a little bit longer, this obviously, but you know, you're paying probably only 3/4 of the price or a half of the price of what the Sony will be, probably. And you're getting beautiful lenses. I do think, and I know some people, I upset people when I say this, but I definitely think that the Sigma lenses are made, they're better quality definitely than Samyang, etc. lenses are. They're a step up above them in the manufacturing. I have used those lenses before when I had the Nikon cameras, and I did adore them. The art lenses are known to be incredibly good quality lenses. I'm not saying that they're better than all the Samyang lenses out there, but they are clearly a step above it. And, you know, they're sort of often on par with what the Sony Zeiss do. So they are a great lens. So if you can't afford to get the Sony lenses, these could be a great option. And when I keep hearing people whinging about, yes, but they've just welded that on there, and we should be thankful that Sigma are doing something for the FE users, you know, and if you use Sony A mount, you have to buy the adapter to put them on there. So, you know, just count your blessings that we don't have to do that. And I think that's really a good thing. Anyway, so I'll put that link down below. This is really an interesting thing as well. I just noticed too that a bride has been ordered to pay $89,000 after trashing a wedding photographer. So often you hear it the other way. But this bride basically was hired a photographer for $6,064.80 in 2015. But it wasn't in the contract that this photographer did have to shoot it, and she ended up using someone else that she'd hired. Now, obviously, there may have been a reason for that. And just to talk about that, I do put that into my wedding contracts. So. And you can talk about this in the chat too when I come back. But I actually talk about this in the in my contract. It's actually listed in my contract that I may have to be substituted for illness or other reasons. And I do put that in there because I don't want someone else coming back to me later on saying they're not happy that I didn't shoot the wedding. Has it ever happened? No. Kerry has had to be replaced once though. She got sick the night before. She ate some food and she was terribly ill the next day, and I did have to get another person in to replace Kerry, which to be honest was a bride's worst nightmare because they adore having Kerry involved. On my Facebook page I've got an actual part of the Facebook page that shows Kerry working behind the scenes, and she really is the bride's best friend. And one time she did have to be replaced, and it was upsetting for the bride, but it worked out fine. But yeah, there you go. And that's one of the advantages too about having a girl that you really work closely with that can do those sort of things, and it's part of my business. If you're working as just a male photographer on your own, it's very hard sometimes to be very hands-on with a female bride or bridesmaids, but having a girl that can do all those sorts of things you know, is fantastic. But I'll talk about that again in other videos when I get back to the setting up your business stuff, which I still want to do. I just haven't had the time. But anyway, going back to this page, yeah, so she charged $6,064 and she didn't do it. But then the bride actually started complaining about things, bagging the photographer on Facebook and things like that, and took the photographer to court. The photographer in the end had so much damage done by this woman that she went out of business. But anyway, in the end, what happened was the photographer won the court, and the customers had to pay $89,000 US back to her. So we do hear good things sometimes that come out. And again, I'll put this in the link down below. Often you hear it's the other way though. So I thought that was a great story that you guys could read. And one thing here is that this is someone trashing your business, and that's one thing. If someone did do that, you really do have to defend yourself because it can be very damaging. And this was another one I found which was interesting this morning. This photographer shot the launch of in Cape Canaveral. It was a SpaceX launch, I think. And he was 300 meters away. I think it said 300 meters, was it? 300 feet from the rocket launch. And this is what's happened to his lens. Just shows you the power of those rockets. He got some great images, though, when you look at these images. And again, I thought I'd just share that with you because I thought it was terrific to sort of see some really different images. But, you know, obviously his lens is no good. Totally gone. But, yeah, there you go. Another one too is I thought I'd share this too because some people are interested in new hardware that's released. Cactus have released this new flash. It's quite small when you look at it. There, it's a 250 watt power, so it's quite powerful. About half the power of most of your, your bigger strobes. But it's going to be available for Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Panasonic, Pentax, Sigma and Sony cameras, and that will be coming out soon. If you go to the Cactus website, you can find some information about that. And there's a few lights like this now that are around, but again, another portable light if you want to try something different. And sometimes if you're overpowering the sun, your normal on-camera flashes aren't powerful enough, whereas this maybe. Definitely if you had two of them though, you'd be able to overpower the sun really well with this type of unit. So let's go anyway to talk about questions, because I'm going to go and open it up to everyone. So let me drag this out of the way. And again, have at David Osler if you want to get to make sure that I can answer your questions. I just wanted to say thank you to Rick for giving the donation. Really appreciate that, Rick. What else have we got? Any word of the release of the 150 to 600? No, I haven't heard anything about that, actually. Cheers. Madfan said there are loads of great small brewers in the US, and guys, crack a stubby with me. I'd love you to all have a drink with me. Video Master, you are the only live person I listen to because you are real. Oh, thank you so much, Video Master. Really appreciate that. I try to be. Not sponsored by anyone. I'm just basically here for you guys and to have a good time, basically. Tim said, who has pre-ordered the A7? And yeah, let us know in this chat too if you have pre-ordered that. David said, I read this before, your weekly videos are like hanging out with friends after work, enjoying a few beers, and that's fantastic. I love that, you saying that, David. Craft beers are a big hit in the US, and that's the thing. I love trying all of these different beers, and whenever I go overseas, I always deliberately buy the local beers because I just love to try that. And when I was in Thailand, I loved trying Singer. There was another one, Chang, which is really nice. Great beers. Billy said, glad to catch you live. Can you give me some info on the a7III? Is it supported? Oh, well, we went through that before. I don't think it will be supported in Lightroom 6, Billy. I think you're going to have to get the latest versions of Lightrooms for that. I'm not sure they support those versions with RAW updates anymore. I don't think they do, though. David said, I've had over 250 in the last 40 months. Is that different beers, Dave? Rick said, just checked out Yusuf Krashim. Wow, I will study him later. I'll have to copy that so I have a look afterwards. I'll just copy it so it stays there. Let me bring up some of his work and we'll have a quick look, guys. Let's go live. Oh, so he's black and white. Let's have a look. Let me go back here. Yeah, very high contrasty type work, isn't it? It's lovely, actually. So he's doing the old classics. Yeah, beautiful lighting. Lovely, actually. It's quite high key sort of looking images, isn't it? It's, I do love the vintagey look too of a lot of what these images are. Boy, he shot some famous people, that's for sure. Audrey Hepburn, oh, she's so beautiful. I just adore Audrey Hepburn. She's stunning. I love that look too, and sometimes that's one of the looks why I always like going back and shooting vintagey type looks, because I love that type of look. You know, and when we went from girls changed from having the really thin eyebrows, I really adore these sort of eyebrows like what they had in those days, and they were very feminine, and I really love that type of look that they had in those days. Really pretty and really beautiful, I think. But yeah, stunning. You know, Jackie and Aces and people like that. I love that type of look, and I've heard Jacqueline Kennedy. I've heard that type of thing is actually starting to come back too. So you know, Elizabeth Taylor too. Gorgeous eyebrows, gorgeous facial features. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. Interesting. Let's go back to questions. What else have we got? A7R2 or the A7III, what's the best? I'd be going for the A7III if it was me, personally. I wouldn't be buying the A7R2 now, unless you definitely need the resolution. But overall, that's going to be a way better camera than the A7R3. I'm keeping my A7R3, but I'd be buying the A7III now to replace it. David said, I've had I went for that before. Jodeep said as well, A7III versus A7R3, that would be. Well, Jodeep, it depends really on what type of shooting you're doing. If you're shooting landscapes and you're doing studio work and you want massive enlargements done, then the A7R3 probably will be for you. If you're doing anything else like events, portraits outside, you know, your normal modeling shoots, things like that, normal family shoots, you're doing video, things like that, the a7 III is the way to go, by far. So it really depends on which way you want to go. But if you're more specialising in those other areas, like I said, landscape and things like that, I'd be going for the a7R III. Tim said, yep, the a7 III for most people. Yes, I agree. Hello, said... Jadeep said, hello from hot Toronto. It's probably freezing up there. Jason said, I think the next A6 camera will be a new redesign, bigger battery, flip out screen and 60p. They have to do something, Jason, or people aren't going to buy it. You're getting very, very close where, honestly, if I was in the market now to buy the A6 500, I wouldn't buy it. I'd get the A7 III. The A7 III. I wouldn't be buying that. So there's got to be a reason that they'll make you buy that. Now, the reason for me, to be honest, is still it's a great gimbal camera. The A6 500 is still fantastic on a gimbal. And it's still a fantastic travel camera in that it's very small. But the thing that's missing is the flip-out screen, and I do love that about the GH5. So I really do hope that with a new A6 7000 or whatever they want to call it, that they do give you 4K 60p and a flip-out screen. Even if it's only for, you know, 3 to 5 minutes of 4K or 60p, I'll be happy. But we'll find out eventually, I think. Marco's here from Portugal. G'day, Marco. David said, ordered A7 III, so he's got it on order. 3Tree said, I secretly don't want you to get very big so I don't get lost in the crowd on the live chats. I'll never forget you guys. You're with me from the start, so at the end of the day, if it happens, 3Trees, but I don't ever want to ever forget you guys, and like I said, it would never be something where I would be sponsored and then not tell the truth. It's just not in my DNA. I would always be telling you the truth. So the chances of me being, you know, given something from Sony and stuff is probably not going to happen. I love that stuff, but I still would tell you if there was issues with it. It's just important. And this is where you have to be very careful what you believe. You know, like I said, recently there was a whole stack of Canon 6D Mark II videos brought out. And it was so obvious what was going on in that marketplace that Canon had given these guys cameras and they were all coming out with all of these positive reviews. That's where it gets into my head. How can you do that to your supporters? Tell the truth. And that's what you've got to be with people is... Sometimes people say I'm a Sony fanboy. Well, I love what Sony's releasing at the moment, but if Sony did something wrong, I would tell you, believe me, that I wasn't happy with it. And I have done that before. So it's just the way it is. But you do have to be very careful with what you believe from people that are being paid by these providers to say things with gimbals, with cameras, with tripods, with camera bags, all of it. It's very obvious when someone's been sponsored by someone and you know, that they give these gloating reviews. And I don't want to do that. I've had lots, you wouldn't believe me. I've got nearly, well, I'm getting on to 8,000 subscribers now. I do get an awful lot of people that ask me to do reviews now, even now. And I immediately ask them back, what do you want from it? And, you know, because I'm going to tell the truth. If I review it and it's not glowing, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. What else have we got? Brian said he's pre-ordered it. I'm going to get the LAEA3 adapter. Yep, okay. What else have we got? I don't get mine until April the 10th. And that's the other thing for me. I was really thinking about pre-ordering it, but my last wedding is I think it's April the 14th. So for me, then I start to go into the winter shutdown here. So for me, it's not that dead important that I get the a7 III for that point. What I'm probably going to do is wait for it to be released and then look at my options about which way I'll go, whether I sell the GH5 and then move that to the a7 III or the a7S III. That's what I want to sort of wait and see which way I go. Rick said, I think the release of the new Tamron and Sigma lenses are as important. They are, and I agree with you, Rick. Anything that these companies do is so important for Sony moving forward. 3Tree said, David, my wife just asked what I was doing when I told her I was hanging with my best friend, David from Australia. I'm certainly can't wait to meet some of you guys when I come overseas. It's going to be so good. Rick said the only thing Canon has on Sony is the flippy screen, and that's about right at this stage. And the focus is still really good. The Canon focus is still really good if you're dealing in video. Tim said Canon has lagged behind because they make money with their office machines, and that's the thing. Canon is a massive company, and they do make a lot from things like copiers and things like that. But still, Jason said, I'm waiting for the angry photographer's bad review for the a7 III. He is already claiming the banding is terrible. He's been very quiet about this camera, though, and that's really interesting. That tells me something, that he's a bit scared of it, I think. And again, wait and see. There are reports of banding in some of these images. There's also reports of banding in the A9. I haven't seen it. And I've used the camera now for 12 months, and I've had nothing that has banding in it. So let's wait and see. Sometimes these testers particularly do things to try and produce this stuff. And the average person working out there, the normal professional, is not going to see that in their work in 90% of cases. So very suspect. And I have been tuning into the angler photographer, trying to wait for him to release something on this. And I'm really starting to believe that he's sponsored by Fuji because of the amount of Fuji stuff that he actually brings in. I think he doesn't claim he is, but I'm wondering whether he is actually sponsored by Fuji. But let's see what happens in that regard. But immediately, yeah, he's picking up on that banding issue. And all you hear now, if you go onto his site, is that he's promoting the new XH1. That's all he's basically talking about. But for someone that keeps talking about he's got no money, and all he's got is this multiple lenses and Fuji cameras that he keeps buying, the medium format camera that he just bought, it's a bit hypocritical for me to hear that he says that, and yet then he turns around and says he's got no money. So he's either been sponsored by Fuji or something's going on. But anyway, let's wait and see. Now I'm going to get slammed by all the angry photographer YouTubers out there. Come on, who cares? Like I said, I'm not there for them anyway. What else have we got? Having said that, though, I actually quite like him. So that's the funny thing about it all. I do watch him. So I quite like that he's probably honest about most things. I'm just not 100% comfortable that he's not sponsored by Fuji in some way. Mike said the a7 III will probably be the first consumer camera to crack ISO 1 million, and it may be, They're going to have to give you something really special in that. Can't wait to see what they actually produce, Mike. Carlos said, what do you think it's best for landscape photography? More resolution or better dynamic range? Both. You can't get better than the a7R III for landscape. I mean, basically, that's as good as you're going to get. With the pixel shift that's available in that camera, that's the way to go. Rick Mentone said, angry photo guy is definitely biased against Sony, calling their cameras toys. However, that guy is rather knowledgeable about photography. And he is. Look, he is very knowledgeable about photography. Is he a photographer? No, he's not. And look, when you saw Jason Lanier going up against him, Jason's photos kill what the angry photographer produced. The angry photographer is a tech guy, and he's incredibly good at what he does. And he's great for the things that he does in, say, releasing these little hacks that he does for his supporters, reviewing lenses, talking about how cameras work and that. He's excellent, and he is fantastic in that regard. But he's not a photographer. He's not a photographer at all. What else have we got? Video said, mark my words, flip out screen for the a7 III could be. At least 60 frames per second in 4K. They have to give that Video Master. Those two features alone will be enough to make their consumer market want it, and you could be right. Rick said the a7 III rumours to be announced around Photokina 218. Says Sony rumours. I'm hoping it's going to be in April, but we'll see. Tim said, Carlos, that both of you are serious about landscape. The a7R III and pixel shift will be a strong. Yep. You'll need a strong tripod. Yep, you do. Video Master 2 grand is cheap. 4 grand for the Canon Mark IV, and that's what I was saying too. It is cheap for what you get. David said loaded the PDF in your iBooks, so I always do that as well. I always put it in iBooks as well. I want the a7 III FC Media said. Casper said, I can't wait to work out with the new FE 400 2.8. I know you will be able to do weightlifting with that for sure. Casper said, getting smashed today. Patrick said, is the 2470 G Master worth it? Well, it depends. I mean, if you looked at, and this is where I'm honest with you guys, if you looked at Tony Northrup's review, the Canon 2470 was better. So it debates. Look, if you love the 24/7 focal length and you need the 2.8 aperture, yes. Would I buy it? No way. I don't need that lens particularly, and I'm definitely not going to pay that sort of money for that lens. I'd prefer to use a prime rather than go for 2470. But it's used a lot in the wedding industry. Do I use it? No. I used to use 2470 all the time, and I never do now. I'm just comfortable now using with the 35 1.4 Sony lens. So personally, I wouldn't buy it. Is it worth it? It depends how much money you want and whether you need the 2.8 aperture. Again, it's a good lens, but watch Tony Northrup's lens about that. Casper said he likes the 2470 GM, but wait for it. I'm not sure what that means. He might be talking about the Tamron. Which of the new Sigma lenses are you likely to get? Well, none at the moment, Rick. I'm comfortable with what I've got at the moment, but I do love having the options of having those lenses out there. The 135 1.8 interests me. Plus, I keep hearing amazing things about the 105. But that 105 lens is so close to the 85 that that's probably the thing that would stop me getting the 105. But I do hear amazing things about that. The 70 macro lens interests me as well. So that's another lens that does interest me as well. So they're probably the ones at the moment. The 70 macro, the 100mm, although I don't think I'll get that because it's close to the 85, and the 135 1.8 are probably the Sigma lenses that would interest me at this stage. But I'm not looking at any lenses at this stage. I'm quite comfortable with what I've got. But things can change, and I may get something like that down the track. I do like the 24 to 105 though, the Sony lens, and that's one that really interests me as well. Video Master said, David Oster, I have a new word, whinging, and it's true, mate. I know there's that many bloody whingers out there. Honestly, they should just get out and shoot. It does my head in, honestly. You wouldn't believe the number of people that I have to delete in the comments because they say ridiculous things. And I had one the other day. You'll laugh your head off. I had one the other day. I can't remember which video it was I posted, but he said, you need to learn Photoshop. And I just laughed and said, yeah, thanks a lot, troll. Show me your work. And he never did. He never got back to me. I went to his site and there was nothing on there. I mean, you just think, what is wrong with these people? And I get them all the time now. And as my YouTube is starting to grow, I'm getting more and more of them. So you wouldn't believe the number of these unbelievable idiots that I get saying things like that. And who in their right mind would say that if you were any good? There's no way I would comment on another YouTuber's or another person's work and say, your work is crap. And I'm not being big noting myself, but I do think I'm good at what I do. And I would not say that to anyone else. I wouldn't even say that if their work was crap. And that's the difference between someone that is ethical and is good at their craft than someone that will say this. And I can guarantee you, anyone that is criticizing work like that in that respect and does that type of thing is no good at their work, because a person that is good and is confident with what they do won't do that. And it's so common online that you get these trolls that do that. And now, early on, I used to go, oh, now I just laugh. And I just have a giggle, and I'm usually talking to Kerry, and I usually show Kerry the comment and we laugh about it, and I just think, oh, it just makes me laugh. What else have we got? Michael's here. G'day, Michael. Rui's here from Alabama, USA. David said, I'm not a pro, so I don't have the same requirements. I'll add a 24 to 105 f4, and that's a beautiful lens, and that one does interest me. I may get that sometime down the track as my walk-around lens, and the 28 f2 for indoor shoots. Yep, nice combo. Dave Clark said, you often speak of using TTL to get base exposure. Yes, I do. Then switching to manual. Can you explain a step-by-step what you mean and give a work-through example? I just don't know what you mean. Okay. So what I do on the actual units itself, and most flashes that have TTL will give you this ability. You choose TTL on your flash, the slave unit that sits on top of your camera. Now what that does is it uses the exposure, it calculates all the exposure for you, of flash exposure and ambient exposure, etc., automatically to give you a reasonably good shot. And that's what will happen. Think of it like an automatic on your camera, putting your camera just into complete auto. So think of it like that. It will give you an exposure that works first time, and you'll get a reasonable result. So that's what I use to get a base exposure. Having said that though, there's something that I do before that. I always set my aperture in manual to get a good ambient exposure. So that's the first thing that I'll do. So I set my camera first in manual, and I do an ambient exposure to get a decent ambient exposure first, because that's the most important thing for me, is to get the ambient right. That's the surroundings that a person's standing in. Then I'll leave that exposure and I'll put it onto TTL with the flash unit on top of the camera. I'll take a shot at that point. What TTL does, it checks all of your exposure, works out how much light. There's a pre-flash that goes on usually in the lights, your flashes, and then it will work out how much exposure it needs to get that shot correct. So that's what TTL does, and it will give you a reasonable result. As soon as I do that, I will switch my TTL exposure on the flash unit that's on top of the camera. I'll switch that to manual mode. That means all the settings are locked in from the TTL exposure, but then I can manipulate the exposure a little bit by going up and down in the flash to get the correct exposure. The benefit of doing that is, if you stay in TTL, if anything changes, for instance, if I move back away from the camera, if I move more towards the subject, the exposure changes. If you, say, go into manual, nothing changes then, because the exposure is locked in and I can move around and it all stays the same. What I'll do is I'll do a video that explains this for you, if you like, and I'll post one time explaining how TTL works. But basically that's how I do it. So I use an initial TTL exposure at the beginning to get an overall exposure, switch it to manual on the unit on top of the camera, and then manipulate the flash up or down to get the correct exposure. Then I can move around. As long as your flash to subject distance doesn't change, I can move wherever I like, and that's the beauty of it. So I hope that answers your question there. It's pretty complex though, Dave, but I hope that gave you an idea. Michael's here. Casper said A9 baby rules. I love the A9. Michael said, g'day, Michael. Brad said, I was surprised by all the 6D2 converts on YouTube almost the same day, almost on the same day of the week. I think a lot of people who are shooting the 6D2 are going to go over. There's no way I'd be buying that camera, no way. Nothing against the 6D, but it was obvious. I mean, it is. It's dead, that camera. At David, do you think A-mount is dead now? Well, I don't know. Look, I hate to say that for people that are invested in the A-mount, but Sony don't really seem to be pushing it much. So I think if you're coming in from new, clearly I wouldn't be recommending to buy A-mount. I would be recommending to buy E-mount. If you're already on the A-mount, well, then you can wait and see what happens, and at least you can use the A-mount lenses with the adapter on the Sony cameras and keep moving forward that way. But to be honest, I think if I was going to do it now, that's probably the way that I would be going. I would be not buying a new A-mount camera now. I'd probably be buying the E-mount and then buying the adapter and shifting over that way. But that's me personally. I'm probably going to break some A-mount users' hearts saying that, but that's probably just what I think. Rick said, what do you do after work for work during the winter shutdown? No, I'm still working, Rick. Winter is the time where I'm mostly producing all my weddings. I'm editing all the weddings that I've done through the year. So there's that goes on, and I'm still always doing modeling shoots and studio shoots and things like that. That's where that more comes into play, because during the wedding season, I'm so busy doing weddings, it's hard to fit a lot of other things in. But during the winter season, I'm doing more model shoots and things like that. And that's where they all come into play. But remember, our winter season's only very short here in Australia. It's not like the US winter or Europe's winter. I mean, it's very mild here, so we don't really shoot down. We don't really get closed down that much, but it's just you don't get many weddings because everyone wants to get married from, say, September right through to March, April. You know, that's the wedding months for me, and then I obviously catch up. All the wedding clients that I go know that it takes a certain amount of time before I can produce their wedding albums and things like that. So they're the things that I'm producing in winter and retouching their images. The initial weddings that I do, I give them their images within 9 weeks. But that's only the initial images on disc, not the retouched ones. They then come back to me at a later date and I do some favourite retouching for them and create their wedding albums and things like that a few months later. So that's usually done during winter. So I have plenty to go through during winter. I also do teaching during winter as well. I use my studio and I do flash workshops and introduction to camera workshops and things like that as well. So I'm always busy. More beer. Brad said, you're just using the A9 to make a living. What do you know? Oh, Brad. Casper said, drink more beer. I've just done that. Michael said, pre-ordered the a7III, come home. I say, yeah, you did order it, Michael. I thought you would. Dave and I banding one time with my A9, but it was in an old gym. I remember you said that, Michael. It's only happened once. It's never happened to me ever. So... Creative Film said, sup. Elric said he's a photographer, just not a good one. Yeah, well, and you're right. The angry photographer he is a photographer because he loves shooting, and I shouldn't have said that, Elric. You're right. He just isn't a professional photographer or good enough to make money from the work that I've seen that he produces. He just loves photography. Yeah, and that's a good point. I can see what you're saying there. What else have we got? Socrates says, what do you recommend paired to the a7III for wide angle, 16 to 35 f4 or the 25 Batis or the 12 to 24? If you can afford it, I'll probably get the 12 to 24. That's a fantastic lens. I've got the 16 to 35 f4 and I love it as well. But the 12 obviously is going to go a lot wider. 25 I don't think is wide enough if you're dealing with wide angle. So I definitely get something wider than that. What else have we got? Dave said, oh, thanks Dave for the great explanation. The bit I couldn't grasp was that I didn't realise the last TTL shot would be retained. Now, I'm not sure with all flash systems that happens, and this is the thing that you're going to have to change, David, to check that it is retained in the flash. It definitely is in my Sony flashes, and it definitely is in the Pro Photo, but I'm not sure about other flashes that are out there like Godox and ones like that. Some people might be able to chime in and let me know if that's the case with the Godox system, because I know a lot of you guys use Godox. Michael is using a different system, so you could chime in, Michael, as well about that, but it certainly is the case with what I'm using that it's locked in. I mean, if it wasn't locked in, David, all you would have to do is make sure that you turn the flash into manual and set it manually. In other words, once your setting's done in TTL, take it off, you take the ability of your flash to be able to change itself and keep the power rating as it is, and then you can move the power up or down, which will be the same thing. It's just that it may not work automatically. So there'd be ways of getting around it, and that would be the easier way of getting around it. Mel said, Sony is not going to declare the A-mount dead. The way to kill is simply not to release any new cameras, and you may be right, Mel. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the A-mount. Dave Clark said, I'll have to make sure this is the case as well with my Godox, yeah, on camera flash. You'll have to see and check it how it is on each camera system. The other telltale sign that a brand or A-mount is doing well when third-party lens manufacturers are not into the camera bodies, build lenses for them. That's exactly right, and that's what's happening with Sony now, Mel. I agree with you totally. I don't see Sony making A-mount lenses at all, and that's possibly what you're correct. Every time you say Sony, drink. Long Island Hillbilly said, can't wait for the Angry Photographer video on how your TTL explanation is all wrong. He probably will, but I'm telling you how it works, and how it works for me and how I've always done it. And you know what? I don't care. I mean, basically, it's what I've said works for me, and I've just told you how it works, Long Island. So, Dave Clark said, brand new idea. You could be Australian, as with a pissed photographer. Oh, you guys crack me up. Couples may divorce by a completion of the retouches and wedding album. That, you know what, the funny thing is, it hasn't happened to me, but recently I've had 2 couples that have divorced within 12 months. It's very sad. You think, wow, they spend all that money and then they've divorced within 12 months. They always get their album, though, within around 6 months or so. But sometimes couples take 12 months to get back to me because I don't design their album. I design their album, but they tell me what images they want in there. And sometimes it takes them 12 months to choose their album, the images that they want in there. But they do get their images within 9 weeks. So they can print off, and they have been edited for print. It's just that they haven't had all of that real high-end retouching done, or their album created. A&U said, the 6D2 doesn't even have a headphone jack. Oh, don't start about that. I mean, honestly, that camera is a joke. Canon, seriously Canon. They're not going to watch this, though, but seriously, Canon, if you're watching this, look after your customers. You guys, the way you are treating your customers is a joke. What you've released with that Canon 6D Mark II, the new mirrorless, the M50 or whatever it is, they are jokes. Now, if you don't learn, and I want you to learn because I want competition, and I've explained this before, I want competition from you guys to make Sony do even better things. Because if everyone disappears, Sony won't innovate. I really want you to succeed. So for God's sake, give your customers something. These customers have paid all this money. The only thing holding them back is the lenses. Now, I could have said the same thing when I was at Nikon, and I sold everything. And like I said, that was about 40 grand a year that I sold. And I bought everything into Sony, so I did move completely over. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen, Canon. If you don't start to look after your customers, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to lose everyone. People will only hold on to this lens stuff for so long. Wake up. Clearly, wake up. It's a joke. I mean, like Anu said there, no headphone jack on that camera. No 4K video on the camera. Single card slots on that camera. I mean, come on. They're all saying that word. I'm not going to say it because you're going to force me to drink. Mel said, in time, the angry photographer and Jaron Poland will have to eat crow. My guess, in 2 years, they will be singing a different tune. They'll switch. And again, it often comes down to sponsorship, you know, and this is why I hope I'm never going down that line, because it's pretty hard to tell the truth against a company that is paying you your wage. And that's the issue for a lot of what's going on out there on YouTube. And like I said, the typical case was when all these Canon 6D Mark II videos came out. And that was so obvious. And I don't know, it does my head in sometimes. It really does. Mickey Blue Eyes is here from Sweden. Hi, Mickey Blue Eyes. Michael said, the angry photographer told me that he has 20 years of dealing with camera and lenses. I told him at this rate he'll need 20 more years to learn how to shoot the camera after seeing his pictures. I'm going to get so much slamming. Oh, my God. I'm going to get so much slamming from the angry photographer supporters, Michael. What are you doing? Are they going to see this? Oh, you guys. Oh, that's so funny. That's one of the best statements I've ever read. Emwood said, David, you make time lapses. Do you use stills or speed up the video? No, time lapses are done through the camera. I use the a7III with the time lapse app from the Play Memories app. And this is one of the things that gives me irritates me that Sony have got rid of that. It really aggravates me that they've got rid of those time lapse, the apps that you could install, because now you've got to get intervalometers and carry all these other things. Or I may even use a GH5. It's a pain that they've got rid of that. But yeah, I use photos. 3 trees, 9 weeks. Man, the people in here of us expect their photos the same day. Michael said, but that guy is smart when it comes to fixing them. And he is, Michael. He's brilliant. If you're dealing with tech, the tech side of photography, he is brilliant. Fantastic. And I've always said that, but he's not a very good photographer. Mel said, David, in reality, the a7 III is not the one dissing the 6D2. It's what the a7 III is really dissing is the 5D4. The reality is it will be an overhaul of their lineup because the a7 III is a threat to all their line, and it is, I know. Like I said, in specs, you are comparing the a7 III to that 5D Mark IV. I agree. Carl said the angry photographer is a terrible photographer. Carl said, why is he's angry? Well, in early videos, he used to be more angry than what he tends to be now. He's become more tame. I followed him for years, and that's the thing. I actually like the angry photographer. I do like him, and that's the funny thing about this. Like I said, I'll probably cop a slam from the angry photographer supporters. I really like him. Brilliant tech guy, not a very good photographer. Casper's saying, Sony, Sony, Sony. Mel said, David, they'll hate you more not with what you say, but how you laugh. Oh, I do have a shocking laugh, don't I? Dave Clark said, in Australia, the angry photographer would fall into the Collingwood supporter. Oh, no, you guys. American people aren't going to understand that, Dave. Oh, my God. Video said, oh, I believe it. People are delusional on social media. And sometimes I look at things and think, oh no, you know, like, can't you just pick that they're selling out? And, yeah, I know. Dave Clark said, tell me, David, do you not follow the Magpies? No, I follow the Western Bulldogs. So if you're from overseas, if you look up the Western Bulldogs, you'll know who I follow. Rad said, David, did you see Canon's AI flash? Too bad the camera development is not on par with their lenses and accessories. I know that. You know what? Rad, that flash worries me because, and I hope Sony don't do this as well, because honestly, I like to be in full control of where I'm pointing my flash, to be totally honest about the situation. That's a flash that will move up and down, and it does all things automatically. Plus, the other thing is you're going to get more battery drain on that, and there's another potential thing where that can break. And because it's got a motor in there, is it then going to be able to work if that motor breaks or something malfunctions in it? And I don't know really if that new Canon flash really is something that I would want to get. So I think that's more of a gimmick, really. It does crack me up that they're developing that and passing that out and not doing other things. But yeah, that does not interest me one little bit, looking at that Canon flash with what they've produced. Brad said, you need to get to the States. Hopefully next year I'm going to come out for WWPI, Brad. That's what my plan is. He's the mellow, angry photographer now. He is. He's changed completely. I used to like him more when he was the angry photographer, to be honest. I used to laugh my head off at some of the things that he used to say. Michael said when he was taking pictures with Jason Lanier, the only words came out was garbage, and Jason's were much, much better. I was actually surprised that he did it, to be honest. But good on him for doing it and putting it out there. But yeah, Carl said Canon's AI flash is a bad application of technology. I would never use it. Yeah, it doesn't interest me at all, that flash. Carl, to be honest, what is the time? 2:13. Rad said, I started with, what's that? Dave Clark said, good show, brother. Got a good fun. I've got to go. No worries, mate. If you have to head off. Rad said, I started with Canon and fell in love with photography. When I was ready to buy a new camera, I did the research and jumped to Sony. Started with the A6, that'd be 500, I suppose. And now I'm loving my a7R III. Yep, I can understand that. What else have we got? Michael said, I'll never talk about people, photography, guys, it just gets him. I never talk about people photography, guys. It's just him. Yeah, I can understand what you're saying there, Michael. Mel said, Rad, Canon may be good with lenses, but they'll be behind if they go to MILC, and I agree with you too, they will be. Jason suckers him in. I know, I was surprised, though, that he actually did it, Michael. I really was surprised that he did that, because I'd seen his work before anyway on Instagram. But, you know, and obviously he does love photography because he's always out shooting. He always says he is, and he is always sharing things. But his work's just not that good. But he is, like I said, technically, if you asked him a question about how cameras work, how lenses work, how a flash works, brilliant. So he's in a different area, and that's why he's got so much following, because he has got such a big tech background, which he is so good at. Gene said Jason held him back while shooting with him. That's interesting, Gene, that you say that. Again, though, you can't compare Jason's work to what the Angry Photographer's producing, and that's just a known fact. If you check his work on Instagram, you'll understand what I mean. Mickey Blue Eye said A-mount has many old-school Minolta lenses that great buy, but heavy as hell. I have a couple and use it with the AE4 adapter and A6500, but the A-mount is dead, I believe, and I think you may be right. Sooner or later, I think the people on the Sony A-mount are going to have to say that enough is enough, and I'm going to shift over. That's just the way I think it is, guys, and I don't think we're going to be able to change how that is. So, 3 Trees Photography said, Dear Sony, we want a full-frame camera with a flip screen, please. I would be rapt if that was the case. Now, guys, we're just about going to finish in another minute or so because we've been over an hour again, as usual. I'm going to get people messaging me again saying the shows are too long. Any questions, please leave them down below. Carl said Jason is a damn good photographer. Yes, he is. If you can leave them in the question box down below, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Like I said, I do always answer it. Don't forget, too, to join the Facebook photography group, guys, because that is now a fantastic group. We're holding competitions on there, doing other things now. So please join that group. It's in the link down below the video. It's the photography and videography group. So please join us in that group as well, because it's a great place where all of you guys can interact with me and with other followers that follow me as well. And basically it's a great place to promote your business because there's no restrictions apart from just 3 images a day and no live videos. But it's a great place to be. Elric said, I don't like Jason's editing though. And yeah, and it's a personal thing, Elric. Jason does edit very HDR-ish looking-y. You either like it or you don't, but like with any editing, you know, people love it or they don't like it. And I suppose that's one thing that we all have different things that we love. Brad Harris said, enjoy your weekend. Carl said, so is David. What else have we got? Next chat? Well, soon, guys. I'm going to keep doing these. I love doing them with you, so I'll have a chat coming up soon. Next video I think I'll do, I might do it tomorrow or the next day, is I'm going to put up another video of using off-camera flash in the city. I did a low-light shoot that I want to show you that images are incredible that I so love. So I'm going to put another one of those up for you, another shooting video. Because remember, I'm a lot different than a lot of people in the fact that I don't just want to talk tech with you guys. I also like to show my shooting style because remember, I am a working studio, and that's one difference between what a lot of other people on YouTube are actually offering. A lot of people on YouTube are just YouTubers, and sometimes I'm not comfortable with that they really should be working professionals. But so I am going to show you more of that because that's my true love, is to show you behind the scenes shoots and things. So I will be showing you another behind the scenes shoot probably as the next video, and after that I'll do a couple more live ones, particularly as things come up. If you have some things that you'd love me to discuss, because that would help me too, put them in the chat down below, not here in the live chats. Put them in the chat down below because that will give me an idea that I can come up and pop on and just do a live chat with you. And I do love the live parts because you can ask questions. That's why I love these live chats so much, and that's why they go so long. If I just went on and did a recording, which I could do, they might go for 3 minutes or whatever, but then you can't ask questions in real time, and I think it's better if you ask questions. Yes, Casper, I have got roto lights. I've got 3 of them. It's the first version though, not the new one. They're quite good lights. Will they replace flashes? No. You still need to use flash. But yeah, I have got them, yes. Michael said the A-mount is a wounded horse. It's kind of sad because it's a good line, but I think was a little before Sony's time, yeah. And I think that's the issue, Michael. I do think the A-mount is time's nearly up. I don't want to say that, but I think it is. They may release one more camera, but I think that's about it for them. All right, guys, I'm heading out because it's the weekend. It's Saturday for me. I've got to go and drink some more of these, I think, because it is Saturday and I can drink as many of these as I like. I'll see you all again for the next video. And obviously, any questions, leave that down below. Please give me a thumbs up too if you haven't given me a thumbs up. And obviously, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Leave any ideas for other things you'd like me to discuss down below, because that would be great, actually. I can write them down and activate those over the coming days or weeks. So, yeah, that's about it for now. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Love you guys, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video. Bye for now.